Okay, good evening, Wesley people. It is good to be here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, good evening.
I have here with me the man of the hour, Mr. Melbour Phillip.
Yes, good evening. Good evening,
I know
everyone.
he is from
good
Wesley.
It's nice to be here with you.
Yep, and I don't know him very well. I have a lot to learn tonight because I heard a lot about him and his accomplishments. So I know, as I say, doing this thing is good for us to know what our people do. I like recognizing people, recognizing the accomplishments, especially of our people. I think that helps in many different ways in terms of people growing up and seeing people that look like you, that doing stuff that you would like to do or never imagined you could do. Because some of us have reached places in our lives we never imagined possible when we were young. And it's always good to look back and to recognize people, and it especially feels good when you get that recognition from your own people. So tonight, I have here Mr. Melbour Phillip, and it's a pleasure for me to have him here tonight. And I'm sure we're gonna learn a lot about him and his accomplishments. And I know as Wesley people, our little village pride, Northeast, Wesley, Margaret, whatever accomplishment, we always take pride in our people. And I'm happy to be here tonight. So I'm going to let Mr. Melbour tell us a few things about himself. Yeah, we're not gonna dig up too much of your personal life. Yes, don't get too nervous. Yeah, so that's some basic personal stuff, and then we'll move on to what you do.
Then.
I myself, I'm also eager to learn about.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Wesley and Margaret and all those who tune in. Well, Melbour Phillip, I'm from Wesley, of course. I grew up in Wesley. Love Wesley and, always keep in touch with Wesley. I left Wesley to secondary school way back in the 70s, in fact, in 71, 72. Went to grammar school. From grammar school, taught at the grammar school for a year, then moved to St. Andrews High School, where I taught for a couple of years before moving to India, where I studied for 5-6 years, and came back and moved back to Wesley and started off, Sunrise Bakery. I started that way back in the 90s, while I was working with the government of Dominica, of course. I worked there for 10 years before I moved off again to study in England. And came back, worked with the government for a few years, then moved to the OECS Secretariat, where I worked for at least 4 or 5 years, and then back to Dominica again, worked for 3 years, and then moved. And since then, I've been in Guyana for the last 12 years, working at the CARICOM Secretariat as a technical coordinator, providing technical support, technical assistance to member states across the community, facilitate the implementation of decisions taken at the regional level. So that's where I am now. It's a short journey, but a very eventful one.
Very, very good. So, all right. So Melbour gave us a little summary, and we're gonna delve into a little more. And before I go further, I'm sorry for the late start. We said 6:30. Yeah, I had to deal with a family issue that took me a little longer, but I'm happy to be here. So, but let us go back and start to the basic and see the Wesley tie. So Melbour, who are your parents? I know
my parents in Wesley. It's Stanford and my Stanford. I don't know if the younger folks may not know them, They both died. I think they died in 1999 and 2000. But and well, my father, of course, is Phillip, connected to Sparrow, and Matoni, and you know, Mahipolit. These are his sisters. Um, my husband is also one of the sisters. Bonham is a brother. So, you know, these are my uncles and aunts. Father was Bradley. And, you know, for you, those of you all in West Road hear the name Bradley. Crane. Crane is, of course, one of the grandson of Bradley, Sparrow's son. So Crane and I are first cousin and good friends. Went way back from high school, from primary school. Ran away from school together, hide from school together, you know, good friends. And the other side of the family is the Wati, you know, Cora Valmore, that's my aunt. I don't know if, you know, some of you all may know Cora very, very well. Apo, called Pussy Ribs, that's my uncle on my mother's side. Grandfather, you know, that is Bolwa Wati from Portsmouth. And, you know, Bolwa, like Reverend Wati and Teacher Phyllis and, you know, Eric Wati and Arthur Wati, these are uncles related to the brothers and sisters of my grandfather, Cecil Wati.
Wow.
So that is in a nutshell. That's the
that's a big nutshell. We covered. Yeah. So yeah, I remember your father and your mother. What about siblings?
Oh, siblings. I have total of 7 sisters and 3 brothers. So they basically 11 of us. In Wesley right now, you have Rose, that's my last sister, and Priscilla Lawrence, that is have the little shop down in the road. Priscilla is my sister, she's also Wesley, and I have my biggest sister is Misty. I don't know if you know Misty for Groovy Bat, now done sister. That's my biggest sister.
Oh, really? Misty?
Yeah.
You mean Gina?
Yeah.
Gina James' mother?
Gina.
Really? Wow. That one is a new one. Was that a secret all the time? I didn't know that.
Gina is my niece.
Oh, wow.
My nephew.
Man, I didn't know that. I had no clue about
that's
that.
my biggest sister. And the other one in Evelyn, Fabian, and the others are away. The 7 sisters and 3 brothers. Well, one of them, my bigger brother, William, died way back in 2007.
Oh, really? That is, yeah. Oh, he died in 2000. I didn't know. I can't remember hearing about that. Yeah, so on this group, we like to hear about the family ties. That's a very important thing. We are trying to document because we know we have no formal lineage for we can go all the way back. So we are trying to use this thing, using Facebook as that kind of resource to some extent so people can come back and look back at Melbour and say, oh, that's my great grandfather. So hopefully
with some other cousins in Wesley, which I could like individuals like I don't want to go too far back. I want to get the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know the song well. Esther, Besta and these individuals, Mama Clemon, these are relatives on my mother's side.
Oh.
Gildan, for example, is related to me.
That's why the bakery was down there. Is that?
Yeah, Shorty, exactly.
Oh,
Shorty is also related to me. That's on my mother's side. My Onad and those there, that's on my mother's side. So these are close family.
Yeah, when I start getting involved in this group more, I realized practically all of us is one big family. There was one particular lady, my grandmother or my great grandmother, who was a telemark, and she basically practically all families from Wesley came from her. So so in all those ties you see, and then you start putting things together. Now I just realized your bakery was right there by my down there, and
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
family ties right
Yeah.
there. And I guess we'll come back to that bakery too, but we're gonna go in kind of chronological order. And
Yeah.
yeah, so in terms of I know one of the stuff that got me interested to the last time I was talking with Saibo, he mentioned you and also being in the group with you. I know I that's where I really maybe talked to you for the first time. So I heard Saibo mention about you, and hey Saibo on. Yeah. Yeah, so and then you made some interesting statement about your early childhood learning, and I too can relate in that area. So I want to hear about the primary school life and the Pampy hole and all the little stories that you knew and what you didn't know.
Oh, it's always a wonderful thing to grow up with a bigger brother. William was my bigger brother, and he was intelligent beyond his age. Going to school in those days, punishment was, the whip, that whip, and it was a fearful thing to go to school. You was afraid of going to school.
Okay, good evening.
As a little boy, especially.
People.
And I could remember initially I was young, 3 years old, when I decided, I want to go to school, and I cried. And my bigger sister Evelyn actually joining us. And good evening. In those days, you have stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And teacher,
Mr. Melbour, Phillip.
Was the teacher, Phillip. Yes, good evening. Phillip Telemann.
I know he's
taught me in stage 1. Taught me in stage 1. Yep. All right. I met her the other day, and she looked just like how I knew her. 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And she taught me then. From then we moved to standard 1, skipped stage 3 to standard 1, and I went into cyber class. And that was where fear really started. And
I like recognizing
William Crane, Emerson, James Folemi, see what these guys were in the bigger classes. And in standard 2, we had Admel teaching in standard. Admel is my husband, son, and he, of course, is his cousin. And no mercy, because of that, we actually decided to run away from school. And for an entire year, we did not go to school. We live in Pampio.
An entire year.
In Pampio, we did our homework in Pampio. We give each other homework, correct it. Put VG mean very good, and you go home and you get, when we couldn't get to Pampio,
So tell me about that homework. Was it just to trick your parents, or did you learn anything while doing those?
Just simply basic maths. You go and you put VG next to it, very good. You get correct, and you get home and they look at it and they see that you're at school, and that was fine. And we couldn't, like a redhead used to be standing on the step of his whip. So if you cannot get to go down to Pampio, you stay right under the there was this is a lipini tree right in the
tell us a few things about
this. Yellow flowers. We go under there, hide under there the entire 3 hours. And when the bell ring at 12 o'clock, we just rush over. And that was until when it was
basic to be hiding
5 and 6 years old, right? Yeah.
When you go back and look at that tree, how small that tree is relative to you now, right? I know maybe
I know.
There, but you say, but how the 3 of us hide behind that tree?
I could remember once we made a little house under that tree, and my father came to tie his donkey, and we were in that little house, and he's cutting, and he was saying, what happened to them, boy? What make them do this? And he's breaking down our house, and we in that house under there. He cannot say a word. And when he ties his donkey and turns his back, we move.
And in perspective, you remember their house was pretty close to the school. That time the school was up by the Methodist Church, and they lived up on the hill where my grandmother lived there, somewhere between there and the road between the Methodist Church. So you were pretty close to home.
Less than 50 yards away.
You were hiding in your backyard, basically.
Basically. Sometimes you actually hide under the house. sometimes we actually hid under the house and we heard everything going on and we were right there, just going to school. And when they go to the garden, well, the yard was our playground. I could remember once we didn't go to school. It was CO, Sam, myself, William, Crane, and we were running there in fouls. And we ran down into your grandmother yard. Then there was a toilet right and the bung in a toilet hole, and we just CO fell straight into that toilet hole, man.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Wow! I hope it was partially empty.
Because yes, he was crying out, William, get the ladder up and come and pull me out.
Oh my God.
We did that and we were back on the road again. It was just fun. Well, for us, it was fun then.
See where that secret is out. It's the first time I heard about that one.
I think the story here though was the fear that was instilled into us. The size of the whip, and we were just 6 and 7. You know, it was afraid of going to school. But when Padmel left and Saibo went into Standard 4, Susu was in Standard 2 and Lee. And that's when I started really going back to school. Susu and Lee, they were in Standard 2, the two teachers. And then Kenneth was in Standard 3.
Did Susu ever beat? Because she doesn't look like somebody that would beat.
She was, I can't remember her beating, but all teachers in those days beat.
Wow.
She was just very nice and very, she made school make sense for some of us. Both herself and Lily, and teacher,
That's good.
And then Kenneth was right in Standard 3, and Kenneth was the one who really came home and, told me to come to school, and he took me under his wings in Standard 3, and, he said I was smart. I didn't see that at all, but he felt I was. And I should be at school. And we became very, very good friends. As a 8-year-old, I consider him my teacher and friend.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So Kenneth was a teacher. So Kenneth was a teacher with maybe that put that turning point for you.
Oh yeah, he was the one who put the turning point. I mean, I could remember Kenneth beat me once. And that was an achievement for an entire year. You're getting one beaten from a teacher once, it says. And that day he beat everybody in the class. And I could remember it was put a sentence on the board, and then he asked, what is the verb in the sentence? And nobody knew the verb. TC was in that class as well. And none of us knew the verb, and he beat everybody. And the verb eventually we found out was have seen. And I could remember a guy, Eric was the one who got it. And when he got it, Kenneth's remark was, the scamp, you get it?
Wow. Oh my God. Really?
I would never forget that one. Yes. And he had already beat, everybody had gotten beaten already.
Wow.
Second round.
He knew it was difficult for you all at that stage.
Yeah, everybody is half, and he's saying, come let me have you. Come let me have you. But we were silly. Everybody's saying have and getting beaten, and we're still saying have because, and that was in Standard 3, and that was what really turned it. And we got involved in cricket, and Standard 4 made me the captain of the school team. I was just around 10. After that point, I could hardly read. In fact, I couldn't read it.
Yeah, I think, wow. At what age? You said 10?
10, 11. I did common entrance, and I couldn't read. I went to do grammar school exam in 19...
You couldn't read. You did at 10, 11. Wow.
But maths, I could math. Any figure you put down, I could get it. I would just, So I went to do maths, and the exam, I did the math exam, the English, and the general paper. I just looked at that. I couldn't do it.
Wow. So
because I didn't know, but words then wasn't making sense. All right. It's later on in life, around 11, that I really started putting letters together to make words. And it's not because you don't want to, but I'm not too sure the system, was designed to really help everyone. And I don't think the system was then designed to do that. In those days,
so you remember the teacher the teacher when you started reading? I know for me there was a particular teacher because I started reading late.
Started reading, but we were given a comprehension once in standard 5, and Welch Richard was the teacher, and he gave us comprehension on a part history, West Indian Readers Book 5, and it was about Balboa. And that class, Samuel Telemack was also in that class, Augustine Samuel and I did the comprehension, and every single word was underlined in red. So his reaction was, if you cannot, write it, you'll have to learn it. And he had us write the entire page, the comprehension, 100 times.
Oh, wow.
So we stayed back in class that afternoon, and we wrote it 100 times. To be sure, you must climb the mountain of Panama to reach the mule pit.
Oh.
His men set up a steep train, and for 3 days they kept silent. We had to write that 100 times.
You remember it up to the end. After doing it 100 times, you couldn't forget.
I've never forgotten that. I read it and I could see Balboa with my eyes closed. I could spell it after that. I could spell it. But again, that was the system that existed then. You had the book in front of you and you just write it over and over and over and over 100 times. You stayed back in school that afternoon until it was dark, right?
Yep. You got lines, right? We used to call that getting lines.
That was more than lines. That was what? Get the paragraphs.
Paragraph. Wow. Man, I had similar experience in late learning, but I
think the system then was not prepared. If you had no support at home, it was difficult. I mean, we grew up and we were, we in the garden all the while. It was a regular thing. On Banana Day, we have to be at the garden, and weekends we were there. It's, so and even the classes you would do English, maths, general paper. Basically, these were the 3 subjects you would do, and in the afternoon you'll sit down and give you a book. You go through the pages, but I cannot remember really, except in standard 5 when Welch was actually teaching that we tried to do anything like English as going to English. It was, they just expected to know it.
So you could not read at that late stage in your early life, and you start common entrance, not being able to read. So how did you get to high school? What happened?
Well, the first exam we did, by the time I did common entrance in 13, I could do a little reading. We had done a grammar school exam earlier the year before, and that's when I couldn't do anything. But by 13, when we did common entrance in standard 7, people who did it that year, we had 18 of us who passed the exam. And whether it was a teacher, we had people like Elitra and Dodin, Augustine Sentile, Melvin Didier, Kent Amo. These were the people in that group who actually passed. Brenda Telemack. We had one scholarship and 2 scholarship. I think it was Miriam Drygo, and Ruth Later for the 2 scholarships.
Who was the second one?
Ruth Later, that is Pepe Later daughter. I think she had a scholarship for history. But these were the 2 top. But 18 of us passed on 19, but the headmaster did work with us a lot. He worked with us for an entire year. And at that time, we were all prepared. So that's really when I really got into reading. And going into secondary school, of course, was a completely different thing. I mean, I had no idea. You go to school all your life with a book in your back pocket. Never went to school with a textbook. I'm seeing children going to school with 4, 5, 6, 7 textbooks. Never.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in school, you never use textbook. You use a exercise book and a piece of pencil.
Really? Yeah, in high school?
In primary school.
In the primary school, I know.
Yeah, when you get to secondary school, then all of a sudden you were exposed to a book for every subject.
Yeah.
And it was like an eye-opener.
Yeah, some people didn't have a whole book at primary school. I remember going to school with half a book.
Half a book? That's what it was. You know, so it was a transition from primary to secondary. It was a big one. You had to start studying. You own 7, 8 books, and you have to be reading those books. You know, and you never learn to study really and put things in your own words. So you learn to memorize things. That's what they taught us at primary school, to memorize. You memorize all the poems and all the things, and you move to secondary school now, you have to stop cramming and trying to put things in your own words. That was transition, was just massive then.
So you transitioned to high school. And I know you started late. How was your performance relative to the others in the class by that time?
It was from first form, it was good. From first form, it was a lot of work.
You just went from, I don't want to say dull boy because the other teachers say you were bright, but you just couldn't read at the time, and you just blew off.
It was a lot of work. I could remember from the time you got those books, we used to move to the gardens and we stay time, and we just used to memorize those books, all the history books. I mean, long after I left first form, I could repeat chapters in the book because you just get to know it.
Yeah.
You know? Because no one taught you how to study, and you studying was to memorize the things and put the word down in the way in which you learn it. Until later on, you realize that's not studying, that a lot of time is consumed trying to memorize something word for word. You know?
Yeah, I remember memorizing a whole lot of that book called Student Companion.
Oh, yes.
Some of the figures in there, I used to know almost that whole book. Yeah, I think my memory was working way better back then.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So you graduated from high school what time?
I graduated from grammar school in 77 we had 9 subjects then, and went to sixth form, and I did economics, mathematics, and history at sixth form.
Any guidance as to why you did those subjects?
You had no guidance. There was literally no guidance. It's what your partner is doing. That's what you end up doing. What I really would have loved to do at sixth form, physics, mathematics. That's what I wanted to do. But my friends who were then doing economics and history, and I said, hey, that's a good combination. I moved into economics and history, and I love my maths. So I did maths with that, economic history and maths. And when I was asked what you're going to do with that combination, I didn't know it would work out.
Yeah, what was that? So from I know some kids growing up, they would say, when they, even way back in primary school, we'd have our parents always ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you have any idea from that early stage as to what you wanted to be? You used to mention anything?
I think the area I really wanted to get into was theology. Because again, you grew up in that environment, and the book that's closest to you is Bible. And you really wanted to be a pastor. These are the role models that existed. I don't think growing up we ever saw a lawyer face to face. You would have heard of lawyers. You've never seen a lawyers. Teacher, policemen, and pastors.
You raise a very good point there, very good point, because there are so many career paths that we can choose of people nowadays, even now, that people are not aware of.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't know what to, so everybody is narrowed down to a few. Some little kids might say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. And we have no idea what is entailed in those things. But we haven't seen much examples of those either.
And that's the issue. The community we were from, hardly see those. And we were in agriculture, but we hardly came across individuals who were trained in that field. And of course, our parents then, that's the last thing they wanted us to talk about.
Yeah, that's the last thing.
Got to move away from that. And them being a pastor was, so that was at the back of my mind. But by the time you reach secondary school, of course, it was like, second thought. And then you start doing, when you start doing economics and maths. I think another thing area that I loved was that job that Bernie Didier used to be doing at the airport. You know, weather, calling the weather and those kind of things.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Metallurgy. That was an area that and that's where the physics and geography and the maths, that's where, you know, came from. But again, by the time we were sixth form, we realized, hey, no, this is not what you want. And even, you know, when I left and went on to study economics, it was still, okay, I'm doing a degree in economics, but I could remember when I was leaving to go and study, the principal of grammar school, you know, who taught me history, told me, you know, you be careful, don't just study a subject, because when you come back to studying a subject, it's difficult to really get into this small community. Make sure you broaden your scope, and that's why after economics, I went on to do business. Although education was at the back of my mind because of the influence of St. Andrews High School, because I'd gotten a really deep
all right, let us
teaching.
let us back to the high school. Let us back up to high school. So in the high school, was there any influential person there, or how was it back in grammar school? I know there's always a thing about country children going on to Rosa. How was it? How was life, that transition for you two? Because I know a lot of people had a serious problem in that area.
Well, luckily, as far as accommodation was concerned, we had a place in town. Accommodation was not an issue. Even at grammar school, when I left Wesley,
You say you had a place in town? Or
yeah, my parents, we had a place in town. My sisters, you know, so accommodation was not an issue. And my sister Rebecca, who was just a few years older than me, was almost like, you know, looking back, I was 13, she must have been 18, 19, but she was a mother. And she was basically my mother until I went off to university. Now looking back, I realized that we were almost the same age.
You had other siblings at that time, during your time in high school, going there apart from your sister?
Well, my sister Rebecca, was there. Dora was also there. My other sister, she was also going.
All of you were in high school at that time?
In town, yeah. And Bernie was down there doing primary school. So we were, you know, and where we were living, in fact, we had, because we had that house there, we had several individuals from Wesley who were staying with us.
Like where was that location specifically?
Riverside apartment.
Riverside apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had Pepe was staying there at one time. We had I think Pepe was staying there. We had Alvin Abraham, who lived with us at one time. Jeffers Privot, that is for Valentine's son. He stayed with us at one time. I think Bama, is it Bama or sister, one of them who stayed with us at one time, Christmas. So, you know, we were, in fact, it was 3-bedroom, but we had around 14, 15 of us staying in that house. So, and I don't know how it happened, but we never felt claustrophobic. We were, you know. So accommodation was
for a big family, I understand.
Accommodation was not an issue. In fact, I went back recently and looked at the bed where we used to sleep on. 3 of us used to sleep on what do you call a twin? Is it twin bed? Those single bed. It looked single bed. It looked so small. It looked less than 3 feet wide, but 3 of us used to sleep on it, and very comfortably as well. And in 4th form and 5th form.
Yeah, when you look back at yourself, you're much smaller always. When you look
back
there
were at least
high school days. Yep.
In that room, there were 6 of us, 6 boys in that room. Nothing more than 12 by 12. But 6 of us staying there, you know, and the grammar school and SMA. But we were like brothers, and you know. But at school itself, when I went to grammar school, I mentioned I was a captain of the Wesley cricket team when I left Wesley. But the first time I touched a ball in grammar school,
captain of the Wesley cricket team before you left.
I went to grammar school. I was 12.
The government school, that is, right?
Government school, yeah.
Okay.
That's where Kenneth, I don't know what, well, he just made me the captain. So we had guys like Pesce and Lindell and those bigger boys in classes, but you know, I was a captain. Then I went to grammar school. It took me 3 years before I actually touched a ball at grammar school, and I was an open bat in Wesley, and I never batted at all in grammar school. I got a ball and I bowled once, and the sports master recognized that I could bowl. I was never bowling in Wesley school. I was always a batsman. And so I got a ball to bowl in 3rd form. And then I bowled, and he realized, wow. Right? That's when I I got into sports in grammar school in third form. I opened the bowling, and when they were doing the running, I could remember one break I went down to the playing field and saw these big guys, fifth formers running, and I took off my shoe and I ran with them. And I outran them in the race. And that's when the sports master came across and told me, "Come, who are you? What's your name?" I was in third form. And then he asked me to go up in the staff room and get the javelin and come and try. I said, "What is the javelin?" He said, "Let's go and ask for the javelin." I got the javelin and I went down on the playing field. And within 2 periods, I was the number one for at school.
Wow.
And that's when I got into sports in a big way in grammar school. That year, I took part in around 7, 8 events. And then the following year, I was captain of the
Wow.
team. And,
wow. I didn't know about that part. It's a good thing I went back to that high school part. So you were
that part was
of the
in those days, your country boy, you couldn't. I went on that field every day, and I couldn't participate. I couldn't take part. It's basically you don't get a ball, you don't get a bat.
A cousin of mine was telling me about that the other day, and about the discrimination, country versus people being very selective in who they choose to play sports. Which it
was. I played in third form and I played for the team, the grammar school under 15. I could remember the first match we went out to play in Suffolk, and I was supposed to be opening the bowling. And when I reached the bowling mark, batsman said, "Who is this guy? He's not batting this guy. This is a big man," and he refused to bat. The team actually walked off the field because they felt I was just too big to be playing under 15. So in that match, I had to agree not to play, and I umpired that match. Grammar school plays for 3 years. I didn't play, and this was the time I had to play, and I couldn't play because I felt I was big. Physically, I was huge.
I wonder if you look back at yourself from now, you see how big you are. Because I don't know.
Everyone's still
looking back. We always think we're big or not very big, but I guess relatively speaking.
When I left grammar school, I was 172 pounds.
Wow, that's big.
And that's big. I could remember the same year I left grammar school, and I threw the javelin off the field. I just threw it completely off the grammar school ground into the river.
Wow.
It was like they had to measure from the wall, come down, and throwing the ball out of the grammar school field. But again, I never lifted weight, but banana is weightlifting, and I used to do a lot of that, and that's where it came from.
That's amazing. I never heard about that part of you. I was always just thinking all the academics, but I always tell people sports, they should encourage their children to go into sports. I love sports. I participated all my years practically in high school. Even at sixth form also, I was participating. It was like maybe 3 of us that used to participate when I was at sixth form.
I could remember when I was doing geography at O levels, it's geography. We were supposed to play a match of saints that day, the day before. And the sports master, Ozzy Savre, came to me and he said, "I know you have an exam tomorrow, but are you up to playing today?" I said, "Yes." And because of that, we played the match. I said, "Yeah, we're going to play," and we played the match. Because to me, sports, let me tell you, I played cricket at grammar school, table tennis. In football, I was a goalkeeper. For athletics, my last year at grammar school, sports meet, I took part in 12 events. I walked home with 8 gold medals.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive.
So,
and you're talking about grammar school, because grammar school that time you have like the cream of the crop, but even the athletes too, yeah. So that was
I came first in javelin, shot put, discus. I came second in 100. I placed in the 400. I did the 4x1 first in that. The medal relay was first in that. High jump again, I was first in that. No, it was,
Okay. Well, but if you were in the US, you'd be a top played athlete.
A long time ago, long time.
Wow.
And I barefooted,
I remember your brother, Sonny Boy, was used to play
Baby Boy was a long
football.
distance.
I remember him playing football. In fact, I have a finger that I tried to block a ball from him. All up to now, the finger has some extra movements that I don't have on the other one.
Yeah, I think he was the one that picked up from me most. Ding, yeah, it's bowling, his football, his running. He was just, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So parents here, encourage your children to participate in sports. They can participate in sports and still do very good academically. And when they do so, go and cheer them on. I've been in West Marine just for many years, and we used to go down, participate in national meet, and our parents, nobody used to be there, just ourselves cheering on ourselves. But yeah, it's always good to have the parents participate. I think it's a very good thing. So, moving from high school, what happened after high school? The first thing after high school.
Right after high school, I went to sixth form.
Sixth form.
From college. And that's where I told I did the 3 subjects: maths, economics, and history.
At A level.
Yeah, at A level. But really, I did those subjects the first year. And my goal then was to play for Dominica team. Academics was really not appetizing that much then. I went out to the trials the first year at sixth form. I could remember I took the most wicket in the trials. I top scored in the trial match, batting. And I was so sure that I was going to be on the national youth side. I went home and I told my sister, listen to the radio. Listen to my name call. And when I heard these guys called 18 names, make decide. And then they called 6 reserves, and I was not in it. I decided then I going back to school. So I went back to school and I told the teacher I need to get a syllabus. That's 1 year wasted. I didn't do my history exam in first year in sixth form. No, I did the history, I didn't do the maths. Economics, I don't even know what I did for that. I know the highest marks I got in first year because I wasn't there. My interest was in cricket. Was 25, and that 25 was on one subject I did, and the one question I answered in history, and they gave me 25 straight marks. But apart from that, my first year at sixth form was just cricket. I wanted to play. I wanted to play for Dominica. And when I realized I topped bowling and I topped the batting and I didn't make it, I said, look, let me get back to school. I got my economics book, I got my history books, I got maths book, and I started studying going out of style. And I ended up passing my A levels. And
interesting.
The rest is history as far as cricket is concerned for Dominica. I could remember, just to say, I could remember when I came back from studies 8 years later, selectors who selected there, not that I had anything against him, but I felt he had something against me, that I would have called him. But he saw me bowled after coming back from university, and he called me and said, can you come and play for my team? And I looked at him, I said, but is he real?
I heard a similar story, man.
The country rose, country city kind of thing.
Yeah, I heard a similar story, in fact, of my cousin. And he was telling me like almost a replica of what you said there.
I mean, you had guys like
versus the selection, it was just totally a surprise, and
you had guys like Banca
really messed him up.
Banca used to turn that ball more than any other bowlers I've ever seen. But he could never make this line.
Yeah, it's sad when they're doing that in sports. Not even on a national level, you're picking the best player.
No. It's only now I realize that they're getting players from the countryside to make. I mean, the first player to make Dominica from the country was Pollock and Marigot.
Wow.
And when Pollock played, they gave Pollock a few overs, and I could imagine, I remember I went to the Windsor Park to see Pollock bowl because Pollock was doing havoc in our northeastern cricket competition. And when he went there, they gave him a few balls to bowl. He didn't even bowl with 10 overs. And that was it.
I tell you. Yeah, it's messed up when we are not choosing the best to represent us nationally. There's something.
I think that was what got me back to school and academics. I thank them for that anyway.
Well, that's good. So you start beating the books when you realize, hey, sports there's discrimination here, and you got back and then you went to university. Which university was that?
Even before I got to university, I went to I taught at grammar school for 2 years.
Oh, so there was a period after sixth form you taught at grammar school.
I taught for 1 year, and it was while I was teaching. My headmaster then was Hubert Charles, and I could remember I went to Hubert Charles one day. Towards the end of the year, and I told him, look, they just opened a school in Wesley, and I want to go and teach in that school, so I'm asking for a transfer, and that's how I ended up at St. Andrews High School.
Also from sixth form to grammar school, teaching in grammar school, and then St. Andrews.
St. Andrews, at grammar school.
Then you went to study.
And then I went to study.
Okay, so I remember you talking about what you did in the early part of St. Andrews to help out the school. Can you?
Well, I could remember, I remember when I went to Hubert Charles, the headmaster of grammar school, and I told him, look, the school is just open just after Hurricane David, and I need to go up there because they needed teachers. And I went up not knowing what to expect. When I went up there, I had just gotten a new headmaster, Mr. Brown. And when I went in and I told Mr. Brown what my intention was, he was the happiest man about because he was desperately looking for teachers for the second year. Because the first year they pulled a few teachers together, Mikey Pascal, you had Lennox Honeychurch, you had Bombs, was the headmaster. But now Brown came in as the headmaster, and you literally didn't have teachers. So when I went to him that afternoon, he told me looking for teachers, if I could find teachers for him. So I immediately in those days, hitchhike, you have to hitchhike. I went across to Marigot and I went looking for Smiley because I know he had come to Guyana and he did something in Guyana, and Smiley reluctantly agreed to come across to St. Andrews.
Interesting.
I went to, you had this good friend of mine, Perroquet, he was teaching in Portsmouth. I called him up and he agreed, to come across. Kent Amo, I met him walking down the street one afternoon. I said, we're looking for a teacher. And what can you teach? And he said, well, I can teach English. And I said, well, can you come in? And Ken came in. So Ken came in right after. And, then he had Dawn Africa, and a few others. So that's when we really pulled 14 young teachers. And looking back, apart from Mona, teacher Mona, teacher Mahabs, and Brown, all the teachers were under 25. They were young teachers, 18, 19, 20, 21, and that was 14 teachers teaching over 450 students.
Wow, it was all of that.
Oh yeah, we had 2 fifth forms, we had 2 fourth forms, 2 third forms, 3 second forms, and 3 first forms, and it was almost 450 students.
Wow!
And everybody had a full workload.
I can imagine.
Out of 35 periods, I only had 2 free periods for the entire week.
Wow!
My first period on Monday morning was free, and the last period on Friday afternoon.
So yeah, it's interesting, but I still like on Smiley. So you were the one that pulled in Smiley. Smiley was one of the key guy in St. Andrews for
practical.
Quite.
Yeah, actually pulled him, and it was a very young team, and we had Abon from Calibre, from Woodford Hill. So,
but you say there was somebody else. I think your cousin Burns,
Perroquet from Portsmouth. I actually. He was teaching in Portsmouth, in fact, and he left Portsmouth and came up to teach chemistry and the sciences. We had Smiley was teaching, I think, the accounts. I was teaching history. I taught history in 5th form. I taught history in the 4th form and in the 3rd form. And in those days, we had to go to town to do exams. We had to go to town to do our BC then because we were reluctant in moving to CXC. I could remember when the year came for the first year in 1981. 81 when you're going to do CXC. All the students went down to town, and I decided to go down with my students to town. I mean, I was just around 20, 21. We went down to town and I went to the market. There was a market, but that's the only place you had light. And people were living by other people's home, and you couldn't put on light so much by other people. So all of them came across to the market. So we had lots of students, sometimes the students in the market studying all night, and I was there with them, basically answering questions throughout the night until midnight, 1 o'clock.
Wow.
And that year, I could remember we sent 63 students to do history, and we got over 30 A's.
Wow.
And we got around 3 or 4 C's, and the rest were B's. No one failed history that year.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I remember somebody mentioned that you were a very good history teacher. And I also observed you were very persuasive, because you went and get all these guys, young guy, you got Smiley, you got a guy to move from Portsmouth to, I mean, how did you do that? It seems like you have the power of persuasion.
I think the pitch was, this is our school.
Our school.
And that was the dedication. This is our school. And
yeah, what we do is for our people, right? Wesley
people, because and you won't believe it that every afternoon at St. Andrews there was just a buzzing of activity. You would finish class, you go home, and you'll be back around there at 2:30, because Mr. Brown's vision for the entire school was to make it a comprehensive school, the #1 school in Dominica. So we had, in addition to academics, you had the technical wing that he was developing, and you had individuals who had never gone to school before getting involved in sewing and other technical things like mechanics and agriculture and so on. That was basically the vision. And the guys were playing cricket and football and volleyball, and had debates, and every single afternoon at St. Andrews you had activity. It wasn't just academic, it was supposed to be a changing agent.
That's why St. Andrews had some of the best sport days back in the days. Anyway, I just remind that if you're joining us late, we're talking with Melbour, Phillip from Wesley, just learning about him and his achievements. I myself learning too, because I was a little younger, and I haven't really have much interaction in person with him. So I'm learning in the process. So you get to St. Andrews, and then you spend how long at St. Andrews?
I spent around 2 years in St. Andrews.
Yes, and then
of course I could remember one day it was a Tuesday. I got a call from the ministry saying that you got a scholarship to go and study in India. And I was India scholarship. Let me tell you, I was so much into St. Andrews then. Leaving was one of the most difficult decisions that I could take. Leaving the students, they were preparing for exam. It was April. They were preparing for, and I could remember when I went to the class and said that I was leaving, and it was.
They just called you up and tell you there's a scholarship.
And I was supposed to leave. In fact, and I was supposed to leave the following day, and I told them to give me 1 more week. And they gave me a week. During that week, I was supposed to get money to pay my passage, because the scholarship wasn't included. It didn't include the passage. I had to pay passage to go to India then. And in those days, passage to go to India was 8,000 EC dollars. And nobody in Wesley at that time could have, 8,000 was a lot of money. And I could remember I was preaching. Although they said it, I wanted to go. It was a difficult choice, a difficult decision, but there's no way I could see I raising the money to go. And it was a Sunday night I was preaching at church. I could remember the topic I was preaching on, and while I was preaching, I did mention that I got this scholarship to go to India, but there's no way I can go because of money and so on. So that is basically on the drain. I was supposed to leave on Tuesday. That was a Sunday night. And one lady who was in the congregation heard me. And after service, she said, "You have no money to go. I can I can give you the money if you want to.
Wow.
I said, could give me $8,000. She said, yes. I said, and she said, let us go to town on Tuesday morning. The ministry had booked my flight for 1 o'clock Tuesday.
Was that a Wesley person?
A Wesley person.
You want to give her credits on that? Are you gonna keep
she's no more. That is Bester mother.
Bester mother.
Yeah, my mama.
Wow.
And
mama.
She walked. Yeah,
that's amazing. Wow.
She took me to town. She went to the bank, and she gave me $8,000 in my hand. At that time, my mother had traveled. My mother was not in the country. She had no idea that I had gotten a scholarship. And, she had no idea. And I didn't even discuss it with my father because, hey, 8,000. So I got it and I just went straight and paid the flight and I left the same day.
But remember, back in those days, I don't even know anybody else that went to India to study.
There was only one guy.
Were you the only person?
At that time, there was one guy who had gone before me. He was my teacher, but I had no idea where he had gone. I only learned that he had gone there when I was there. I learned that he was there before me. That is Wolf Christian, Gabriel Christian, bigger brother.
Okay.
Alicia Christian, I think she remarried now. Her husband died. He died soon after. But he had gone there, and to me it was an adventure. Basically, it was an adventure. And I spent 5, 6, 7, 6 years over there.
Studying what?
Second degree.
Studying what?
A bachelor's degree in economics, and then I did an MBA focusing on marketing and small business development. It was. I saw very few West Indian over there. West Indians. I remember I heard.
I surprised you to see any.
Well, Mama was then the Prime Minister. When she came there, I traveled to Delhi just to meet her as one. And then while I was in Kerala is down south. Kerala is the tip of the Mediterranean Sea. And I heard that there was a Dominican at the foot of the Himalayas that is in Shimla. And that would have taken me 72 hours by train. And I said, I gotta see this Dominican.
Oh, 72 hours and you say you gotta see the Dominican.
Yeah, I had to spend a weekend with him, and to spend the weekend, I left on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I arrived on Friday. I spent Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. I left, get back to school for Wednesday.
Who was that person? And how did you find out? I mean, who was the person?
Dr. Irvin McIntyre.
Oh.
He was doing medicine over there, and that's where we became friends, Dr. Irvin McIntyre. We spent a short weekend with him, and there was also another Dominican in India as well. So on my way up to him, I stopped off by Paul Moses, and we all met up in Shimla, spent a few days in Shimla, and came back down. It was, and that's the only time I'd seen Irvin before. I knew his brother. His brother was an athlete, and we ran together. But before that, I never heard of Irvin.
So did you have to learn you did all your studies in English? All the studies were in English, right? You didn't have to learn
all the studies in English, but in Aligarh, where I did my first degree in economics, we did Urdu. Urdu is something between Arabic and Hindi. So you learn the day-to-day Urdu, and you can speak a little thing here and there. And from there, you moved on to Kerala, where they speak Malayalam. Now, Malayalam is one of the most difficult language out, and so I don't think I learned much in Malayalam, perhaps 1 or 2 words. But in Hindi, when I left there, I could speak a little, but now it's a long time now. I have to brush up on my Hindi.
Yeah. I heard your
the
way your tongue rolled, man. You sung like you were pretty good. you have I always try, that Spanish thing when you have to roll. I can never get it. I don't know, something may be wrong with my tongue.
No, when they go there, they Marielle, when they start speaking those things, man, it's amazing. But the thing of communication was basically English. We spoke in English, and on campus, the first
2 degrees
university we were in those days.
Wow,
Huh?
2 degrees. So you did 2 degrees in India, and then you came back to Dominica right after that. And
I came. In fact, I didn't even wait for the certificate. I could remember when I was supposed to. I did my last paper, let's say, like on Tuesday morning, and I booked my flight for the Tuesday afternoon, for the Wednesday afternoon. And I left almost the following day. I'd been away from home. I had not spoken to anybody from Dominica apart from these guys, and my sister in Canada, I think I spoke to her once, never spoke to my mother 5-6 years. You know, in those days, it's a letter.
Wow, that is...
to be writing.
It's so different now. It's so different now.
Every week, it's so different, man. To get a phone, I have to make an appointment to make a phone call because it's this big phone that you have to ring.
So during that 7 years, you stayed in India the whole 7 years, never come back to Dominica.
Never left.
And
I travel all over India, but
you stayed years not hearing from your family sometime.
Well, just writing. My mother was remarkable. I think she made sure that every week I got a letter. I think I call her so romantic because she did huckstering then. And one day I could remember, you know, I don't know where she was. She didn't have a paper. She took a banana leaf and she just wrote a little note on the banana leaf, wrap it up nicely, put it in an envelope with a $20 and send to me. I love you, Melbour. And I felt that was so romantic. And so you don't see those things happening.
I've never heard of anything
and
like that.
That time she came, she was going through the airport, and I think, I don't know, she had the ticket stub or whatever it is, and she just wrote a little note on the ticket stub, put it in an envelope, and sent a little $20. You know, so she kept in touch. She never lost. Every single week, I got a letter from my mom.
Every week,
and
all the years.
Yeah, they would come 4 or 5 times before I even respond. I was trying to maintain a link, a connection to Dominica. In fact, almost everybody I knew, I wrote them, hoping that they would keep up the connection. But most people never responded. And you know, you get 1 letter, 2 letters here, and 2 letters here, and that's basically it. You know, it was, but we had a large African community there, so, and I got involved with the Africans. I was with the Africans. In fact, I was contesting for the Kenyan Student Association presidency at one time, although I was...
that one is quite interesting. For the Kenyan Student Association president.
Yeah, that's how deeply involved I was.
Many almost went back to Kenya and us.
And you know, you're saying a joke and they're almost dead.
Man, yeah, you were a little disconnected from Dominica to some extent, for real.
Oh yeah, disconnected. I met very few. In fact, once while I was there, I heard there was somebody told me they met a Dominican, his name was Ozzy Walton. I said, but I know Ozzy. Where did you meet him? They told me he was all the way in Napa or whatever. But by the time I tried to make contact, he had gone back already. So meeting a Dominican was like a big thing.
I could understand that.
Meeting a West Indian was just as big as meeting a Dominican, let me tell you. Wow. And in some places, meeting a black person was just fantastic. You see a black person in a crowd and you run to meet them. It's amazing. It's just, you know, you identify with the color of your skin so much after a while.
Yep. You get very conscious. I remember going to Kentucky to do some work along there to spend some time, and then I was there and I wasn't seeing any black people. And I became very color conscious. Yeah.
Very color conscious. Yeah. And not only that, India by its nature is perhaps the most racist country in the world.
Wow.
By its very nature.
So you experienced that? You experienced racism over there?
I think, in fact, one of the things that saved me a lot was, in fact, let me give you, when I went to university, I left in such a hurry, I left all my certificates back home. And when I went to get admission, the first question the guy asked me, where are your certificates? And I said, which certificate? Where are your O levels and A level certificates? I forgot that back home.
Oh,
he said, where's home? He said, where's home? I said, Dominica in the West Indies. And he said, West Indies? You're from the West Indies? I said, yes, I'm a West Indian. You play cricket? I said, yes. I'm a fast bowler. And then he said, okay, what's your name? Bam, bam, bam. I got my admission. That's how I got admission.
They love the cricket. That'll be a pass for you.
That's a pass. So when I met, a lot of times I was saved because I was a West Indian.
Wow.
And I played cricket. Once I say I was Indian, I played cricket, I got an easy pass.
Am I getting the implication there that if you had said African, you would be in more trouble? You'd maybe?
Oh my God. In fact, I could remember once one guy begged me money and I gave him, and then he asked God to forgive him for taking money from a black thing.
Oh my God.
Wow. He asked God to forgive him for taking money from an apchi. Apchi is a black monkey.
Wow.
Allah. You know, so, and again, you don't hold that against them because the caste system is so structured. You know, see you as a black person as lower than the lowest of all the castes.
Wow.
Right? Not the Muslims that much. The Muslims are different. The Muslims are they're more accommodating, but Hinduism itself is so structured.
Wow.
And you know, but hey, we were not bothered. We were not bothered at all. We got through the system, and you know.
All right. So
had some good times in sports. Cricket, athletics, I set a couple of records in javelin, and cricket, I open bowl for my university for all the years I was there, for high jump and triple jump, and I left a few records behind.
Wow. So, you took your sports there. That's
oh yeah. One of my policies on campus though was I could have done it there, but I'm not too sure if in the Western world it's possible. At least 2 days every day I spent focusing on sports, and 2 hours every day, and at least 7 to 8 hours a day I spent studying. Social life was nil. So wow. Basically it was sports and studies.
And sports and the books.
Yeah,
so let's move from India coming back home. What is, you come back home and you start working in the government, right? No more teaching that time?
When I came back home, and I can remember I came back home immediately. I started working at the credit union I did it for a short while. It was a credit union. I was a deputy manager there. I worked there for just a short while, past 3 months. And then I moved because it was, when you study and you come back, you are the most, if I were to do that now, I would not have made the change then. But what motivated me more than anything else was I wanted to contribute. And to me, credit union is such a, closed area. I couldn't see avenues for making contribution. The salary was much more, twice, perhaps more than 2.5 times while I was getting to the government. But I couldn't see how I could make a contribution. So I left there and I went to work in the Ministry of Trade, Trade, Tourism and Industry. And I stayed within that ministry in various offices for over 10 years before I moved on.
What was your title? What title or titles there?
Well, it was one, business development officer, and secondly, it was industry officer. And basically, the focus was trying to develop business in Dominica. You provide technical support for small enterprises in Dominica. At one time, I worked with the people that deal in handicraft right across Dominica. Go to the community, try to help them set up the business, operate their little handicraft business, and how to improve quality for the tourist market and so on. And then move from handicraft to the more medium-sized business like the blows and bellows and the others, trying to help them to develop a product for the export market.
Was there anyone that stood out from this with your help?
Well, more of because we worked as a team. Mikey Pascal was also on that team at one time. We had you know, several of the other guys, this guy who is the leader of the Freedom Party right now, Ken, was also part of that team. It is sad though, because looking back, when I went back, I tried to ask about the existence of most of the companies that were existing, while in the 80s and 90s, and even in the 90s, and all closed. Most of them.
Yeah. So that's what I was checking on the companies that you all help, which, if anyone. Really?
No, most of them are closed. Some hotels are still there. The hotel.
We're talking in the 90s, right? Early 90s, because you
early
went
90s.
India. You said 7 years. That's somewhere in the late
early 90s. In fact, in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, I left the government in '99 actually. So I spent around between 12 years with the government. In Ministry of Trade, I work in trade for 2 years, then I move across to the industry where I stayed 10 years, and during that time, that's when we were trying to build the international airport.
So from Ministry of Trade, you went
to the National Development Corporation, where I was the business development officer and the industry officer.
So that's where you played a role in the airport.
Yeah, that's when I was seconded from there to go to work on the new airport development project. That was in.
And you're talking about the airport under the UWP.
Under the
administration.
UWP.
All right. I know that's a hot topic right now, but yeah. So maybe give us a little summary of your input there. What tell the people maybe.
I think number one, the first thing that they wanted to find out. And again, I wasn't assigned there because of politics. It was basically because of my background. Because just before that, I just come back from England, where I did a master's in environmental impact assessment and evaluation. So I was asked to lead a team of around 30 individuals to look at the resettlement, basically looking at site, farmers who are going to be affected, deciding on how much money they should be given. And in doing that, I had to interact with the people of Wesley on a regular basis, all the farmers. I had one-on-one discussion with them. After the individuals from Lands and Surveys and Minister of Agriculture would have come up with an evaluation of the property, I would have gone to them and find out, are you satisfied with this? Is that what you're looking for? Is it, tell me what you think, And after they've decided, yes, I am satisfied, 60,000, 100,000, whatever, after they accepted, then we proceeded to submit the final report, and the underlying policy and the underlying principle of the whole resettlement was no one should be worse off. No one should be worse off, and therefore we made sure that everybody got what the property worth. For the crop as well as for the property. We had as I mentioned, over 30 individuals from agriculture, from lands and surveys, from community service. We had individuals from the community itself working to ensure that the properties were well valued and that individuals were paid on time and got what they wanted. Some people asked for relocation. Some people wanted to go to Londonderry. And it's, that was stated clearly where they wanted to go, and that was negotiated, but before it was actually implemented, the government did change, so that never happened.
So where did they have to be relocated at that time?
Well, they had two areas for relocation. One, they had the Londonderry estate. I think they bought a couple 100 acres from the Laville, and some farmers would have been reallocated, those who were involved in agriculture. We had done an assessment of the land from the Laville to see which was the best place for banana, which was the best place. So those individuals who were involved in planting banana or yam or whatever, they would have been given, land that was appropriate to what they were doing. Those who wanted for housing, they would have been given land appropriate for that. In addition to that, a few hundred acres were also acquired in Krapo Jupa. Krapo Jupa is a place above Melbourne Hall Airport, right at the back. If you're going from Melbourne Hall to Layu, there is flat land. The plan was if the airport would have been established, then a road would have been built from Melbourne Hall right across the Layu Valley, 15, 20 minutes, and land up there would have been opened up, and therefore farmers who would have been relocated in that area would have land that they could actually develop. So that plan was in place. And some individuals opted to go to Papajupa, of course, based on the value of the land. If you have a land value at Phillip City Hall, that would have been, let's say, 30,000, that could give you perhaps 5 times more land at Papajupa. So there was that swapping based on value that was under consideration. But not much of that took place. I think only a few people who were relocated at London Dairy Estate, and of course, those were not done as they were planned.
Wow, so that relocation, I just thinking, because at that time there wasn't much houses to be relocated. So the London Dairy Estate, was that mainly for farming, or they had location there for housing also?
It also had the location for housing and for hotels and so on. And there were areas that they had allocated for farming. There were only basically, I think, 2 or 3 houses that fell within that. And these people were paid. Well, Mr. Henry didn't take any money because he felt that that site was not the most appropriate. He didn't. But the other individual actually collected the money and agreed that they would relocate themselves to wherever they wished to. They didn't ask for land to relocate. They actually took the money. So, but
so Elford Henry refused the.
He never took any money for it. So his money must have been put in the bank or something. But he was never in support of the airport going in that direction.
Okay.
Because all his land there would have been going, and he was never in support of it.
Yeah, and maybe for the people that looking at this, maybe 20 years down the road, Mr. Elford Henry was a past representative for Wesley. He was representing the Dominican Labour Party.
At a time when...
That may be why we called him out like that.
Yeah. And at a time when we hardly had anybody else in Parliament. At one time it was only himself and Douglas that were in Parliament.
All right. So somebody asked here, I just checking on the live now. Somebody asked about how many farmers give up lands or get paid. Do you have any idea?
Yes, I think it was a total of 163 farmers in the area. One of the most striking thing about the land that was taken is the average size of land, agricultural land I'm talking about, would have been less than 2 or 2.3 acres. The number of farmers who decided that they wanted a relocation and would have been around 33, roughly around 33 of them who wanted relocation. And some decided that they wanted half relocation, half cash. And a good example of that was my father. He wanted half relocation, half cash. He got half the cash and half he wanted to be relocated. And those who opted for cash did get the cash relocation. Not all of them, actually were given land in exchange. So you have a few people, land was taken from the government who never really got paid for their land. And there are a few of them. I think I have the list not too far.
That's quite interesting that. So after that, where did you work with the NDFD?
NDFD was much later. After that, after we submitted the report and the committee was disbanded, I got a job at the Social Security in Dominica as the deputy director. Social Security, I worked there for 3 years until at the end, at that time I had a bachelor's and 2 masters, and I was working there as a deputy director. When the government lost election in 2000, January, the first working day after the Labour Party got into power. Funny enough, before that in January, Rosie Douglas came to my office basically and asked me, he wanted me to go up for the Wesley constituency, and I wasn't ready to go into politics. I don't think I wanted to go into politics, and I opted. No, I advised him. He asked me, would you suggest somebody? And I suggested a good friend of mine who could have gone up for them, and called my friend in this present. We discussed it, and
I think one of my brothers say you would be a good politician.
One of them said,
"Yeah,
that sounds like banker."
Banker, yeah, that's right.
One of my good students, I know. So when after the Labour Party won the election, I was very amazed when the first working day after they won the election, two individuals came to my office and tell me that I should submit my resignation because I'm under investigation.
Huh?
And I said, investigation for what? I said, well, we're investigating and you're going to be investigated and you cannot oversee your investigation. I said, well, I am not resigning. They said, you have to take leave. I said, I have no vacation. And then said, well, if you have no vacation and you don't want to resign, we're going to take a junior and put him above manager. And that's where the new director was actually taken 3 levels below and actually put as the director.
Wow.
Of course, they sent home the director, and I was supposed to go as well, and I don't know why up now. And I stayed working with Social Security for 3 years, and the last 2 years, basically, I was totally marginalized. I mean, politics is highest. I never been involved in politics. My first scholarship I got was under, I work under the Labour Party, I work under the Freedom Party, I work under the United Workers Party, and I was really not in politics, but I was from Wesley. And since I'm from Wesley, I must be supporting, And so I stayed there, and I stayed there for 3 years, and after I was asked to leave, actually, at the end of 3 years. And that's where I moved. I could remember the same day I left there, while I was walking out from the Social Security, I met the director of the Economic Development Unit of the OECS. And he said, where are you working now? I said, I'm on the job market. And he said, come to my office. And the same day, I mean, it was literally the same day.
Wow. You walked out of the office and you just got a job.
I walked into and I became the business advisor for, the Economic Development Unit of the OECS, based in St. Lucia. I stayed there for 4 years, and then went back to Dominica in 2005, 2006, and that's when I moved to the NDFE.
Wow. So I understood that you at one point in time, the current representative, you worked with him, right? Mr. Grant.
Oh yeah, he worked at the NDFD. In fact, a very brilliant job though. He started working there as an accountant, and I was happy to have employed him as the accountant. He did a fantastic job there, I must say. And very good, pleasant guy to work with.
Hey, that's a good one there for Grant, right, Grant? Good.
No, I'm telling you. I mean, let me tell you, politics is one thing. But yeah, this is a Wesley man, and
oh yeah, I mean,
and he worked with me, and I could tell you, politics is a completely different thing. But I was proud of him.
I mean, this year is not about politics.
Not at all. Not at all.
Sorry.
And his uncle now, I can remember. His uncle was also one of the young teachers at
Griffin, right?
Griffin was one of the young teachers at St. Andrews High School, and he did economics A levels without going to university, and this is without going to college, and it was a remarkable thing. So also worked with him while he was doing his A levels as well.
Wow, yes. So and then after that's when you moved out to Guyana.
After the NDFD, after staying at the NDFD for a couple of years, I moved to ministry. And now this was a very funny one because I moved across on a project, EU project dealing with ICT. They were trying to, take, develop an ICT curriculum for the primary schools, for the secondary schools, trying to outfit our schools in Dominica with computers and so on, and develop the IT capacity of our small business in Dominica. It was a big project, a $30 million project under the European Union, and I was a project manager for that. And just while it was coming to an end, I got an offer here at the CARICOM Secretariat, that is in 2009, and I moved to the CARICOM Secretariat, where I've been working as a technical coordinator for a technical action services unit for, more than 10 years.
What exactly does that entail? What?
Okay,
break it down for us a little bit, that don't know.
Okay, one of the challenges you have is you have heads of government. Heads of government makes decisions all the while. They meet twice a year, and whenever they make a decision, member states are expected to implement those decisions. When you talk about member states here, we're looking at starting from the north, we have Haiti, Belize, Jamaica, and come down to Antigua, St. Kitts, Nevis, and St. Lucia, Dominica, 15, and then you have Anguilla, Montreal. And these member states are supposed to implement decisions. Now, those decisions may mean, enhancing your capacity to implement. The member states may not be in a position to implement those decisions at the time. So my task, therefore, to identify the capacity needs in those member states and make necessary arrangements to ensure that we could build those capacity to implement the decisions. Let me give you an example. One of the decisions taken in 2006, I think, was all member states should have an accreditation council. Accreditation council to really facilitate the free movement of nationals. For individuals to move from one country to another, you have to have a degree here, you have to have, so to ensure that equivalency of qualification that you do, the degree you get from University X is equivalent to University Y. We must have accreditation council in the member states having the necessary capacity to ensure that happens. So my task then would be going to the member states, identify their needs, and develop projects to get resources to build the capacity so that they could actually develop those accreditation councils. And sometimes that will take some time because it's a process. Another area that we focus on heavily was immigration. Immigration is supposed to move freely, but each country has their own immigration laws. Immigration officers, they're trained to do certain things. Now, they were never trained to facilitate the free movement of nationals from one area to the other. So we need to focus on building the capacity, training those immigration officers so that they could, another area is the Bureau of Standards. Deciding on the standards of certain goods, how to, each Bureau of Standards would need capacity to actually administer, those rules, and you have to build the capacity within those Bureau of Standards. We have to first establish those Bureau of Standards in some member states, ensure that the staff are properly trained so that they could do the job that they are to do. Even legal, when they make decisions, they may have to change your laws in some countries to match to implement those decisions. So you have to get legal draftsmen to draft the laws and to help to actually implement those laws. So basically, that's some of the things that we've done over the years, some of the areas that we actually focus on.
Sounds like some very important and challenging work. You're a very important man. So are you representing Dominica, right?
No, No. This is
how is it?
originally.
How the selection? Is it just based on qualification? And how many people involved in that?
Okay. CARICOM Secretariat, we have over 300 staff employed. Both here in Guyana and Barbados, where we have the CSME office. Individuals apply for job and they are selected based on the merit.
Great.
It's not no political interference. Yeah. It's basically based on the merit.
So you get to that. You got to that position based on your merit.
Yeah, it's simply based on merit.
Performance.
No political intervention. We have here at the Secretariat now, I think, at one time we had 8 Dominicans. Right now we may have 3 or 4. The head of the Secretariat right now is a Dominican. We have around 3 or 4 others.
That's pretty good. So from a kid that never liked school, hanging out in Pampy Hole, lying to his parents about the work that they have done, hiding behind in the burial ground. You had no idea that you would end up in this position. I mean, the wealth of experience, my God, you worked at so many different places. So you're a big source of knowledge. And I'm sure that that is something that we can use. They're using in the regional level, and definitely locally and around nationally, we can always use your resource. Yeah, the mental capacity there, and all the wealth of knowledge you have going on there. And we are very, very proud of your achievement. Oh, I think I heard you talking about preaching also. I know I want to wrap up soon because we have, yeah, I know you seem like you feel fulfilling at least part of that first childhood desire, right? In preaching, I can remember one time you said that you were coming from. So you want to share something on that?
Yeah. Well, I presently I'm the first elder of my church here. The church I attend there in Guyana, and I do. The committee of the Guyana conference here in Guyana. The conference, the Guyana conference of the Adventists in Guyana here. Yeah, I do a lot of preaching and I enjoy actually sharing the word with individuals. Spend a lot of time. I still spend at least an hour every day studying the word. And, I share it whenever I get the opportunity to do it. Whenever I get the opportunity, I make sure I share it, and especially I love working with young people and trying to see if I could influence them to carve out a path so that they could leave a trail for someone to follow.
That's good, and that is part of what I'm hoping we achieve here tonight. Apart from just documenting all the whole process for your successful journey academically, you seem like you were cheated out of the sporting part of things, but you still did exceptionally well on the academic side of things, and continue.
I think
continue to do that. And
Yeah, I think academic. I think individuals should never try to. Studying is an ongoing process. You never stop studying, and the moment you stop, gaining knowledge, you decide to die. To keep alive, you study, and that's why the next phase, what I'm working on right now, surprisingly, not economics or business or whatever, or perhaps business, but I'm looking at a new area that I've grown to love, I should say, over the last year or two, and that is herbology. I think it is an area that our parents mastered, and we never picked up anything from them. The usefulness of common herbs. So I'm spending a lot of time studying that right now. The usefulness of the common herbs that we use.
So you're gonna get some of that local knowledge and document them. Are you documenting those
Well, what I'm doing, I've done a couple of programs, in that area, formal programs in that area, and trying to develop a sort of Caribbean herbs, so you could have those natural things that we get the common names, the science name, and see how we could, put them in a formal setting, so individuals could actually know what these herbs are good for. Things that we use all the while. Like you don't know.
That is true. Those things are not only beneficial locally, but they can have a lot. I mean, economic benefit for us by getting those things out in the wider world. Because I see there's a product that now an agent selling. It's called Fountain of Life, and that thing they were using that thing way back in ancient times. But now these guys commercialize this thing, and they're making a lot of money on this.
Yeah,
so it's very good product. But yeah, just using local stuff, knowledge that we know. There are a lot of stuff, like my mother know a whole set of different uses for herbs. And some of these things, people are very health conscious now. And as we start getting more knowledge, we have to conclude that natural stuff is the best way to go. So
yeah. Like the other day, I learned that although we did while growing up, but we perhaps taking the cane juice, for example, and washing your face so that you could take out all those marks on your face. You see those things, and you're taking the purple leaves and making the juice out of the purple leaves. These are things that you hear of, but we never really embrace in growing up. The young mango leaves, making a good tea out of those stuff. So these are things that I wish the next generation could actually learn.
Yeah, I think somebody asked me if I intend to take questions from the viewers. I'm trying to read some of them. As I go along, but we want to wrap up soon because it has been going on for a little while. Yeah. I know maybe I could split up Melbour thing in two parts or more because you heard of his experience. I mean, it's quite a bit of places that he has been through and influence, obviously, and based on his performance, he could just walk out of a door from one job and just walk right into. I mean, I always heard about you, but I never interacted. I know you're a Wesley guy, working in Rosa for a while, doing well, and but a lot of people like that, and we don't know about them, and so that this exposure here on our local, let's say, level, that is something, and I hope someone or some young people or even older person get inspired. As you say, he's still studying, he's still learning. So you're never too old to learn. And I think I'm inspired too, because I need there's some other stuff I need to do. And I have to get it done. And I know you have your wife here is listening on too. And you have and your kids or children.
I got 4 kids though. I got my first son is it's around 30, second is around 20, and first son is finished university already. Second is finishing this year, and my 2 daughters are young still. They're still in high school, in middle school right now, 10 and 11.
And taking on the path of what, sports and academics in the footstep of parents.
They love reading for sure. They love reading for sure.
All right, so all right. Banker, I've been trying to look at some of the questions there. I think I picked up some of them. I don't know if I catch all, but I answered, I asked what some of them that I've seen on here. So, Mr. Melbour, Phillip, is there anything else that we missed? I know you basically, one of my last questions was what advice you would have for the young people of today. But you basically answered that to some extent, though, but maybe you can just...
I think one thing though, I just want to, it's amazing because, and I'm going back to the St. Andrews days, because that was, you know, that kind of motivation that I had. I could remember I was 20 when I was the chairperson of the Adult Education Committee in Wesley. And our focus then was make sure that everybody in Wesley learned to read and write. We had some seniors among us who couldn't learn to read and write. So we had students at St. Andrews having classes in the evening, teaching adults to learn to read and write. I'm not too sure where we are with that project right now. I'm not too sure how many people. Something like that, I think we need to embrace.
Yeah, I remember there used to be an adult education program. I don't know what it is like now. Hopefully, I don't know how many people read now, but and it makes it so much easier too with all the technology that we have. It's
so much easier, you know. You could even teach guys from their home. They haven't got to come because it's kind of embarrassing to come in we used to be at the police station. It's kind of embarrassing, but you could actually do a one-on-one.
Yeah,
so it's something that I think, you know.
That's right, because with the technology you have now, you can actually do one-on-one. They save them from, the embarrassment that you say of going out there and people, the kind of stigma people associate. It shouldn't be like that, but we should be, if somebody, an adult, and they're trying to learn, trying to read, we shouldn't laugh on them down, but we should maybe more encourage them to do so. But we know our society when it comes to that, and people with their own pride too. So, yeah.
And another thing that I've been dreaming of. I don't know how it's going to happen. It's just a dream. Perhaps we have young, bright minds on listening that could actually take it and run with it. More than 80% of Wesley lives in the diaspora, and they're working. And I was thinking in my private moment, if it would be possible to establish a Wesley Diaspora Development Fund, where individuals could put not $1 million or $1,000, what you can, a $1, $10 fund that we could administer in such a way to help locals in Wesley develop small business. Because right now we have no source, the source of income in Wesley has depleted so much, we don't have that flow of income. So you could have a development fund and somebody could manage it, bring together and see how you could manage that fund. Somebody need a $5,000 grant or $5,000, we can make it a rotating fund. They would get $5,000 after proper scrutiny and analysis, start a business. We would give back that fund when the business start moving up, so that you'll always have that fund helping. I don't know how you're going to administer it. I'm just thinking younger minds and the child could take up.
Yeah, I said hi, Lucia, there because I think I remember her telling me something like that. And she said, great idea, and then she she wrote my name on there, but yeah, so that's why, so I was kind of it's almost kind of confirmation. Great idea. If we can implement that, I mean, when people come together, it's amazing what we can do together.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, just cutting the field in Londonderry, a little tractor, $4,000. I mean, it takes
and not only that,
to raise that kind of fund. We don't always have to depend on the government for assistance and handout. We can help ourselves too, and I think it's a great idea. And if we can get to implement it, that would be great. We can have an impact. I don't think in just handing people money, we put people in position to help themselves and to help out the community as a whole. And in the process, we can create employment.
But basically, that's right. And if we make it a revolving fund, half grant, half low, make it a revolving fund so that individuals, some people want to go and start a small little farm, let's say planting vegetables, because you may need a little $1,000. Go to the bank, the interest rate is 15%. You never finish pay back that money. It's prohibitive. With this fund, we manage it internally, make sure we set up systems to ensure that it's not, is not wasted, and we could have something going. When someone leaves an high school right now, what is the
got a little connection issue here. Yeah. Stop. All right. You got to turn back on your mic, Melbour. Your mic is muted. Turn on your mic.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, unless
someone leave.
Let's try to end in like 5 minutes.
Good. The question is, when someone leave high school right now, what can they do? Before we used to go teaching, police, nursing, what opportunities available? I think we need to, as diaspora, those of us who benefited from Wesley when Wesley was at its heyday, when Wesley was a source of income for Dominica, I think we need to see what we could contribute. And that suggestion, perhaps you could, Mr. Robin, take it up and run it by
you're the guy with all the business experience and all the experience, so you could be a key person on that. And since you raised the idea and you got all the skills and the knowledge, you could really spearhead it. Yeah, and anything to do with money, I know I've raised money in public. In fact, yeah, I just did one helping this young lady that had that cancer, breast cancer. You have to be transparent with people, and you have to be honest, and people have to see if those things don't happen, then it'll be very difficult. But people that need trustworthy people, and if people trust you, there's stuff we can do. I mean, 1,000 people give $100, $100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah,
easy,
easy, right?
Yeah. So it's something that we could work out, and it's. Let me say,
All right. Somebody say this is very informative, and it should be done every Sunday. If somebody could, if we could have somebody every Sunday, that would be great. I don't know about every Sunday. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot more people outside there. Some of them I'm trying to get in touch with. Some people don't want to come and talk. But there are a lot more people. We have all, I mean, and it doesn't have to be academics alone. As I say, we have even our older folks. They have some information that they can share with us. You can this is on a small community level, and this is Wesley is our people. I mean, know what one another do, and it's a good thing, and it's good to see people that look like you, that achieve certain things, that stuff you didn't even know existed. I didn't know you could get a job like that. Wait, going through some little young child in Wesley Primary School to work with the Caribbean Secretariat, or to be a deputy of the Social Security thing. I mean, sometimes we don't know those things, and it's good to get that kind of exposure and see that our people, and we have a lot of people that left Wesley and took up great positions in Roseau, and some of them there in Roseau, and you think is Roseau people, but they actually, some of them from Wesley Margaret area, doing pretty good, and even in the diaspora here, And so that is one of the thing we want to expose here, and hopefully we have other people as bankers saying to come on every Sunday. That would be interested, but yeah. So maybe Fern, you can come. Maybe we'll have Fern next time. How about that? Any suggestion? All right, Melbourne. Yeah, let's try to wrap it up here.
A suggestion is
one of last thing you want to summarize and say to the people.
No, I was just saying a good friend of banker that you perhaps could approach would be Alvin Robin, but they all could look at that at a different time. So I think, yeah, I think one of the thing I just summarizing, Wesley has always been, you know, source, Wesley Marigot, the source of that, you know, technical people in Rosa. Right now it's not the same. Before, when we were at St. Andrews, there were only Wesley and Marigot teachers there, nobody else. And young Wesley and Marigot, right now we hardly have anybody from Wesley and Marigot there, but that's a different thing. I think in summarizing, I'm saying we as a people, we have to remember from whence we came, and we must do what we can to restore Wesley, make Wesley remain. Wesley was, I mentioned that when I passed common entrance, 18 of us from Wesley passed common entrance. When my sister passed it, I think it was 10 or how many years before me, or 7 years before me, they had most of the scholarships from Wesley. All right? That is where the brain existed, and it's right now this has been challenged, and I think we need to see how we can contribute to Wesley to make sure that generations to come will remember it, and not as a forgotten city, but as a city of hope.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Melbourne, just one last thing. I see one of your students, sorry, said, that's Lindy Prince. He said, hello, my teacher, meekly wait and murmur not. He said, I remember those favorite words of yours. Those words were told to our third form class whenever a test was coming. You remember that, right?
That's when they wanted to know the question. They wanted to know the question beforehand.
Renwick said the best school wicket keeper. We won all matches with Melbourne.
Oh yeah, wow. Yeah. When because I was spin bowler, yeah. Wow. And in West I was a wicket keeper batsman. I could remember in one game I started wicket keeping against High Reserve. I broke my finger and took the gloves off. I picked up the ball and I went to bowl, and I bowled 4 overs, 4 wickets for 3 runs.
Wow. With a broken finger.
Broken finger.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, well, that's great. Gina, yeah, I just found out that Melbourne is your uncle. That one I had no clue. Yeah, but anyway, I got to wrap this up. So Melbourne, again, it was a pleasure. I got to learn a whole lot about you. and your achievements, that's amazing. That's amazing. The early part about not reading and taking thing and just man, that's amazing. So people, Wesley people, thanks for joining us here. And we are hoping that someone else can come on the next time. If we have one every Sunday, that'll be great. But that's a little very ambitious, but it would be good to do that. So a lot of people are sending you the congrats and the wishes and the admiration for all that you have done. And we appreciate you. And thank you for coming on here, because a lot of people, they're kind of reluctant to be put in the spotlight like that, even though they achieved quite a bit, but they don't like the spotlight. So thank you for coming, and thank everybody for watching, and thank you, Cynthia, for joining us here, my former colleague, St. Andrews, Melbourne's wife.
That's my wife here now.
Thank you.
All right, so Melbourne, enjoy the rest of the evening. and everybody else. And this again is saved in the Wesley group. So people gonna come hopefully after us and still have this thing for the information. So greatly appreciated.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.